Welcome back, deep divers. Today we've got three wildly different stories. We've got a cursed tavern, a knight who can't sleep, and a king who's conquered the whole world but still feels kind of empty.
And even though these stories come from all over the place, they're all dealing with some pretty universal stuff, like ambition, consequences, the whole search for meaning thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're holding up a warped mirror to like our own world. You know what I mean? We get to see these big questions, but in a totally different way.
Exactly. And the first story, it throws us right into this crazy, chaotic tavern called the Cursed Tankard.
Oh, I love that name.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with this tavern?
Well, it's hidden away in this misty forest, and it's run by a leprechaun named Finian.
Okay, a leprechaun bartender. I'm already intrigued, but there's got to be more to it than that, right?
Oh, there is. So Finian, he actually hates gold. He prefers silver.
Whoa, hold on. A leprechaun who hates gold. That's like unheard of. I bet there's a story there.
Maybe, but the source material doesn't really say why he was exiled from the fairy circles. It does say that his staff is all exiles too. Each one's got their own, quirks and talents.
Okay, so let's hear it. Who's working at this tavern?
Well, there's Twiggy, the fairy housekeeper. She's a bit impish. Then there's Shaman, the cook. She's a mute witch.
Okay, a mute witch chef. I'm definitely picturing some interesting dishes.
Oh, and then there's Harry, the headless half-giant. He's the bouncer.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Headless? How does that even work?
Well, his head actually does all the talking, and it kind of floats around.
Okay, this tavern is sounding more and more bizarre by the minute. Who in the world goes to a place like this?
Well, all sorts. You've got your hags, dwarves, pixies, the usual suspects. Oh, and they've got a vampire support group that meets there, too.
A vampire support group? Seriously, what do they need support with? Trying to resist the urge to bite people?
That's pretty much it. They call themselves Vampires Anonymous, or VA for short. And for this particular meeting, they've requested a vegan blood substitute.
Vegan blood? That's a tall order even for a magical tavern.
Yeah, Finian was pretty flustered about it,
I bet. I can't imagine vegan blood is easy to come by.
Right. So Twiggy tries to whip something up with her fairy magic, but it's actually a Scottish gnome named Dean who helps out.
Okay, I'm already suspicious. This gnome sounds like trouble. What kind of help did he offer?
Well, he convinces Twiggy to get blood from some local vegan wanderers.
Hold up, get blood, as in without their consent?
Apparently. And then they use that to make this, questionable blood substitute.
Okay, this Dean character is definitely not winning any Good Samaritan awards. What happened when the vampires drank this stuff?
Let's just say it did not go as planned. Instead of curbing their cravings, it sent them into a total frenzy.
Oh no, I bet that didn't end well.
Nope, it was chaos. Vampires attacking everyone, furniture getting smashed, a dwarf even lost his beard in a tug of war. The whole tavern was a disaster.
Poor Finian. That gnome really messed things up.
Yeah, but you know what's crazy? Dean was up in the rafters, just laughing his head off while all this was happening. He loves chaos.
What a jerk. So how did Finian finally get things under control?
Well, he calls on Shaban, the cook. Remember, she's a witch.
Right. She must have some tricks up her sleeve.
She does. She creates this glowing garlic wreath, and it basically acts like vampire repellent on steroids. They all calm down immediately and go back to their meeting room.
Garlic to the rescue. Classic. So after all that, what happened to Dean, the chaos gnome?
Finian banished him, of course, but Dean, he just slipped away with this mocking farewell, like he was planning more trouble.
Ugh, what a menace. So how did it end with the vampires?
Well, they finally came back to their senses and were totally mortified. They even gave Finian a ton of silver as an apology.
Silver, huh? Not gold. He's a principled leprechaun, even after all that.
He is. But this whole crazy tavern brawl, it's more than just a funny story, right? It's like a warning about good intentions gone wrong.
Totally. It's like Dean threw a match into a pile of gunpowder and just sat back to watch the explosion. Makes you think about those people in the real world who do the same thing. Cause trouble just for kicks.
Right. And what about the consequences for everyone else? It's definitely something to think about. But now let's switch gears and talk about our knight with a serious sleep problem. Okay, so Sir Galentine. This guy is seriously sleep deprived. Can't catch a wink. The sources really make it clear how desperate he is.
Yeah, I could only imagine. Tossing and turning every night, that would drive anyone crazy. Has he tried, all the usual stuff? Warm milk, counting sheep, that sort of thing?
Oh, he's gone way past that. We're talking bloodletting, crazy herbal remedies, the works. Nothing's worked.
Wow, bloodletting. That sounds more like a cure for a disease than insomnia. So what does he do?
Well, he hears about this wizard who lives deep in the misty woods. Rumor has it this wizard can tell a story so boring, so incredibly dull, that it instantly puts anyone to sleep.
A sleep-inducing story, huh? Pretty unique magical talent.
Right, and Sir Galantine is so desperate he's willing to try anything. So he sets off on this quest to find the wizard.
Of course, it can't be that easy, right? There's got to be some obstacles along the way.
Oh, definitely. His map shows 3 places he has to go through: the Plain of Perpetual Peril, the Hills of Deathly Doom, and the Valley of Eternal Despair.
Those names sound pretty ominous. I'm sensing some serious adventure ahead. It's almost like they're poking fun at those classic hero stories, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely a humorous element to it, but it also builds suspense. You're wondering what kind of crazy stuff Sir Galantine's going to encounter. And speaking of crazy stuff, he runs into a dragon.
A dragon. Classic fantasy trope. What's the dragon's deal?
It's this big, grumpy dragon named Slorg. And like most dragons, he's guarding a huge pile of treasure.
Okay, so typical dragon situation. Does Sir Galantine have to fight him? I mean, I don't imagine a guy who's chronically sleep-deprived would be much of a match for a dragon.
You'd think so, right? But actually, Sir Galantine uses his wits instead of his sword. He makes a deal with Slorg.
A deal? What kind of deal?
He promises to bring the dragon double the treasure if he lets him pass unharmed.
Clever.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing he had no intention of actually keeping that promise.
Yeah, probably not. Sir Galantine seems like a pretty pragmatic guy. Sleep is his top priority, even if it means bending the rules a bit. Anyway, after he escapes the dragon, he meets this swamp witch named Agnes.
A swamp witch. That can't be good. What kind of help does she offer?
Well, she says she has a potion that can cure his insomnia, but there's a catch.
Uh-oh, I bet there's a big catch. What is it?
She wants him to marry her in exchange for the potion.
Marry her? That's a pretty steep price to pay for a good night's sleep.
Tell me about it. But remember, Sir Galantine is desperate, so he agrees.
I can't believe he agreed to that. What happens next? Does the potion work?
It does. He drinks it and falls into this deep, death-like sleep. But instead of waking up refreshed, he ends up in purgatory.
Wait, what? Purgatory? Like the afterlife waiting room? How does a sleep potion land you there?
It's weird, right? The sources describe it as this awful, desolate place. It's like his insomnia has followed him into the afterlife.
So even in death, he can't find peace. That's pretty deep. What happens to him in purgatory?
He meets this elder, a wise figure, who gives him 3 riddles to solve.
Riddles, huh? That's classic mythology stuff. What are the riddles about?
Well, they're all designed to make Sir Galantine confront his own issues. Like the first one asks, what must be granted when it cannot be earned?
What must be granted when it cannot be earned? That sounds like forgiveness.
Exactly. He needs to learn to forgive himself for whatever's been keeping him up at night. The second riddle asks, what grows the more it is shared?
What grows the more it is shared? Okay, that one has got to be love.
Right. Again, he needs to open himself up to love, both giving and receiving.
Okay, so forgiveness and love. I'm sensing a theme here. What's the third riddle?
It asks, what sees not its own worth?
What sees not its own worth? That's a tough one.
It is. The answer is gratitude.
Gratitude. Yeah, that makes sense. It's about appreciating the good things you have, even when things are tough. So, did solving these riddles help Sir Galantine?
It seems like it. As he thinks about the riddles, he starts to see things differently. The atmosphere in purgatory even starts to change. And then, all of a sudden, he wakes up.
Back in the land of the living. Did he escape purgatory?
He did. But here's the twist. He wakes up in Agnes's cottage. Turns out the whole purgatory thing might have been part of the Swamp Witch's plan all along.
Wait, so he was tricked? The potion didn't actually send him to purgatory?
It's possible, but it's unclear if the whole experience was real or some kind of illusion created by Agnes.
That's a good point. I mean, did he really find inner peace, or was that just part of the trick?
We don't really know, but there's one more twist. Remember the wizard with the sleep-inducing story? The one Sir Galantine was looking for?
Yeah, the whole reason he went on this quest in the first place.
Well, guess what? He finally finds the wizard, and it turns out to be the same elder he met in purgatory.
Whoa, hold on. The wizard and the elder are the same person. That changes everything. So was the whole quest, the dragon, the swamp witch, purgatory, was it all some elaborate setup by this wizard?
It sure seems that way. But why would he do that? What was his goal?
That's the big question. It's almost like he was testing Sir Galantine, putting him through these challenges to see what he was made of.
Yeah, like some kind of cosmic test. But was it meant to help Sir Galantine, or was it something more sinister? We don't really know. And that's what makes this story so interesting. It makes you think about free will, the power of belief, and the line between helping someone and manipulating them.
It definitely connects back to the themes we saw in the Cursed Tankard story. Unintended consequences, the ripple effect of our choices, it's all there.
Right, and it raises even more questions. What motivates people to do the things they do? Can we ever really know what's going on inside someone else's head? It's a lot to think about.
It is. And now we're going to shift gears again, from a knight's quest for sleep to a king's ambition to reach the moon. Talk about a wild ride.
All right, so from purgatory, we're blasting off to, well, space. King Alden, he's conquered the entire world, right? But he's not exactly happy about it.
Yeah, it's like he's reached the top of the mountain and realized there's nowhere left to go. Yeah. Kind of a be careful what you wish for situation.
And the sources really emphasize this emptiness he feels. Like he's achieved everything he ever wanted, but it hasn't brought him any real satisfaction.
It's almost like this existential crisis, you know?
Yeah.
What do you do when you've achieved all your goals? What's left to strive for?
And then one day, his astronomers spot something incredible, a lone figure walking on the moon.
Whoa, hold on. Person on the moon? Now that's a twist.
Yeah, it's like this whole new frontier suddenly opens up for him. And it reignites his ambition, gives him a new goal to chase.
So he decides to launch a moon mission. I mean, this is medieval times, right? They don't exactly have rocket ships.
Nope, no rocket ships. But they do have a lot of ingenuity and a healthy dose of magical thinking.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How do they plan on getting to the moon?
Well, first they try to build a giant ladder.
A ladder to the moon. Seriously?
Yeah, it was a pretty ambitious plan, but it didn't quite work out.
I can imagine. What did they try next?
They built this massive slingshot.
A slingshot? What were they going to launch? A giant rock?
Actually, they tried it with a cow.
A cow. Poor cow. I'm guessing that didn't end well either.
Nope. It was a bit of a disaster. So finally, they realized they needed some serious magical firepower. Enter the dragons.
Uh-huh. I knew dragons would have to come into this somehow. So they hitch a ride on a dragon.
Pretty much. They choose this powerful dragon, Rexus, to pull a gilded carriage all the way to the moon.
A dragon-powered moon mission. That's amazing.
Mm.
But also kind of sad. Rexus gives his life to get them there.
It is. He uses up all his strength and dies on the moon. It shows how much Alden is willing to sacrifice to achieve his goals, even if it means putting others at risk.
Yeah, it makes you think about the cost of ambition. So they finally reach the moon. What happens next? Do they meet this mysterious figure?
They do. They encounter the Watcher, who's been living on the moon for centuries, just observing Earth.
It sounds like the Watcher has a very different perspective than King Alden.
Definitely. Alden is all about action, conquest, pushing boundaries. The Watcher is more about contemplation, reflection, understanding.
Two very different ways of looking at the world.
Right. And the Watcher shows Alden something that changes everything. He lets him look at Earth through this incredibly powerful telescope.
And what does Alden see?
All the destruction he's caused, all the suffering his conquests have inflicted on the world.
Wow. That must have been a real wake-up call.
It was, and it completely transforms him. He renounces violence, pledges to rule with compassion and wisdom from that point on.
Talk about a change of heart. It's like seeing Earth from that cosmic perspective completely shifted his priorities.
It did. And he's not just going to sit around feeling bad about his past either. He decides to return to Earth and try to make things right.
So he's choosing action over despair. I like that.
Me too. But there's one more twist. The gods show up. They've been watching this whole thing unfold, and they're not too happy with Alden's past actions.
Uh-oh. That sounds ominous. What do?
They tell him he has to give back all the lands he conquered by force. He has to make amends for the harm he's caused.
It's like they're holding him accountable, making sure he doesn't get away with his past misdeeds. How does Alden react to this?
He accepts their judgment. He's humbled, he's changed, he's ready to do whatever it takes to set things right. And the gods even assign the Watcher to guide him on this path of redemption.
The Watcher and the King working together to heal the world. That's a pretty powerful image.
It is, and it's a hopeful ending to Alden's story.
Yeah.
It shows that even someone who's done terrible things can change, can choose a different path.
So we've gone from a chaotic tavern to a knight's quest for sleep, to a king's journey of redemption. 3 very different stories, but they all seem to be saying something of the human experience.
They do. They make you think about the consequences of our choices, the dangers of unchecked ambition, and the possibility of finding meaning even in the darkest of places.
They remind us that there are always different perspectives, different ways of looking at the world, and sometimes all it takes is a shift in perspective to change everything.
Exactly. And with that, we come to the end of our deep dive. We hope these stories have sparked some interesting thoughts, some new questions, and maybe they've even inspired you to look at your own life, your own journey in a new way. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.